Coming up, we're going to talk about the best and worst of this year's Halloween Horror Nights on this week's episode of the DIS Unplugged Universal Edition. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the DIS Unplugged Universal Edition. I'm your host, Craig, and I am joined along by my co-host, Ryno.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing this week, Ryno?
I was a little under the weather. I feel like I'm on my way to recovery now, so better.
Good. You definitely sound a little snuffy, but
yeah.
I just assume it's because you've been crying over the fact that Halloween is coming to an end.
I have been very emotional, yes.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Christmas is coming right on its heels, so we can all be glad about that. But I am sad, too, that Halloween is quickly coming to a close, and that's why we are making this our final episode about Halloween Horror Nights for the rest of this year, unless they make an announcement. Then, of course, we'll go ahead and throw it in. But ultimately, 1 weekend left in the event. Yeah, we're going to end up going back maybe once or twice more, and maybe our opinions would change slightly, but I think it's pretty much locked in place at this point. It's an event that I don't think really shifted a lot for me this year. It kind of stayed right where it was in my mind after the first couple weeks and didn't necessarily get better or worse, just kind of remained the same the more I went. So yeah, I feel like it's time to bring Halloween to a close this year. I know you don't want it, but we have to.
Are you saying Halloween ends?
Yes, it does. Oh. Halloween usually kills, but this year Halloween ends.
Yeah. Boo.
Okay. Terrible jokes. And you know who sponsors these terrible jokes? Dreams Unlimited Travel. So if you
David
like our
Gordon
content,
Green.
I don't know if he does. I don't think he'd care for that joke. But it's fine. It's fine. Of course, if you like our content and you want to support us, please book a vacation through Dreams Unlimited Travel. It costs you no extra money, and you get the support of one of the awesome Dreams Unlimited Travel agents. So head over to dreamsunlimitedtravel.com today for a free, no obligation quote. Okay, how we're going to break down this conversation today with Halloween Horror Nights. We're going to talk about it in a sense of the best of Halloween Horror Nights, the worst of Halloween Horror Nights, and then kind of the rest. Because, not everything falls in those two categories. Sometimes you have that gray area in the middle. And Ryno, I think we should probably talk about the negative things first so we can get the negativity out the way and build up to the things that we enjoyed the most. So I will just say I came up with this list and I'm making Ryno either endorse it or disagree with it on the air. But I think we generally have the same opinions on this, just maybe a little fluctuating. There's some things I like more than he does, some things he likes more than I do. So it's, take this all with a grain of salt. This is just two white idiots on the internet talking right now. And that's all it is. That's all it is. Right?
It's the name of the new podcast.
Oh, no. We still haven't changed the name. Don't worry about that. Roll music. Okay. So we're going to start with the worst then, so we can get that negativity out of the way. And the first thing that I have for the worst part of HHN this year, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with it, for me, the crowds have just been absolutely horrendous this year. It might not be the busiest year that the event has ever had, but I swear there are nights where it absolutely feels like it. And I just, I just feel like you're clogged everywhere you're trying to walk through, not just scare zones, in any area. Maybe a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, right now, so much of the park in that front area of Production Central is under construction with the Minions and where Monsters Cafe was before. That tends to clog up a lot easier. But it just feels like it's been overly crowded all the time. And the wait times are reflecting it too. I mean, people are basically getting into Stay and Scream right away when you can and waiting an hour plus to get into line for like Halloween and the weekend, and like they're waiting that extra time for Stay and Scream. So it's even harder to endorse Stay and Scream, something I still absolutely do and think that you should be taking advantage of it if you have the means, if you have that day ticket or you have that Scream early ticket. Yeah, do Stay and Scream. That is still the smartest way to go to maximize your time for the event. But it's like things have been insane right at Stay and Scream's start. And yeah, they'll slow down. They'll have lulls where everything jumps up to 30 minutes and then it'll be walk on for a while, walk right up to the house and get through. But it's not unheard of to see houses just holding a wait time over 100 minutes for the entire night. Like I saw a picture posted on social media of the Monday night that they added. The wait time for Blumhouse and like two other houses was 150 minutes. And I cannot imagine waiting anything over 20 minutes for the Horrors of Blumhouse, let alone 150 minutes. And it just seems like that's been the trend the entire season. The wait times have been pretty awful, or they'll be like non-existent and the postings will be completely wrong. And be like, oh my gosh, it said an hour and I only waited 20 minutes. It's just, there's been a lot of inconsistencies, but the crowds have been bad nonetheless. So it's been one of the worst things for me, for sure.
Yeah, it feels like either, I don't know what's going on, but it's one of those where it just definitely felt like there were less days where it was like, okay, we got 6 or 7 houses done tonight. Good for us. Like it felt like it was a lot. I felt like my average each time I went this year was probably like 3 houses. And last year I felt like we were like cranking through and I'd be like, boom, 7 houses we did tonight. Look at us go. I don't know. You and I did that multiple times, even into October last year. Like I specifically remember us getting lucky and being like, wow, we did almost the entire event. And even then, I think we could have done even more, but we didn't want to wait like 45 minutes for an 8th house. So we were like, let's not push it, and this year it feels like, you'll get the 2, that you'd get with like Stay and Scream. And then the 3rd one, that wait will be increased. But by the time you're out of that 3rd house, it was like, okay, everything's 45, creeping into an hour, and you try and like wait it out. But when I was there last Thursday, and I know we're closer to the end of the event right now, but it was like, like you said, Horrors of Blumhouse, I think got at least, I was checking it over 120 minutes for sure. And like every single house there had over 75-minute wait. And I'm like, what can you possibly like? It's great for like, because we have our frequent fear passes, and this year I have frequent fear plus, so it includes the Fridays, and then the first full weekend and the last full weekend of the event. Maybe it's just a lot more of those people. Maybe they sold more tickets. Maybe there's just more of a demand for it. I noticed like a lot of days were sold out this year, especially in October. A lot of them. I don't know if, that's makes me sad, because next year I'm sure the frequent fear pass is going to be like, it was like pretty affordable in terms of, I want to say it was like $225 or something like that after tax or whatever. And my guess is next year that's going to crank up like significantly.
It could. They really tried to do a good job for. What's that?
I'd like them to add more nights. I think we're looking at. I know it's difficult because there's only so much staffing and you have to look at it that way. But like, because I know that probably the difficulty they run into is they can't have like 5-6 day weeks in September, and have that sustainable through October. But also the same people who are working there in October are probably a lot of the same people who were there in September, and they're just working longer shifts now. So it's that like weird thing where it's like, I don't know. Adding more nights really requires a lot more staffing, I'm sure.
No, it's impossible to add enough staff to get 6 night weeks. That's why it's been 5 night weeks, because then you're looking at a standard work week in that way. So it's a lot easier, because it's not just the characters, it's also the ops. It's the ride operators for the attractions that are open. It's everything. If they can follow that 5-day-a-week work schedule, then they don't have to worry about overtime. Everything could be a lot easier with that. So the only thing to do to really extend the event is to go into August if they wanted to. And then you start running into another issue. Not necessarily like, oh, it doesn't feel like it's time for Halloween, but I think they hit a problem with then August too, where you have people like that are renting out the parks and such, and I know they could work around that schedule, but that's also a very profitable side to Universal is after hours parties, and not that Halloween Horror Nights couldn't also make them the same amount of money, but it's a tough needle to thread, and everything's going to get thrown up in the air as Epic Universe comes down the line. And then, if people are over there in those parks, but Halloween Horror Nights is happening, it's going to be an interesting future for Halloween Horror Nights. I don't think they'll raise the prices dramatically in terms of the daily event ticket, like for a one-night event ticket, or the frequent fear passes and such. But, Express Pass, that's something they can easily start raising the price on even more than it already was before, to try to cut down on the amount of people buying those, because that's how your standby lines get so out of control too, when you have way too many express passes being used and really clogging up the express lanes. Because if you have an hour-long express line, yeah, of course your standby line is also going to jump up significantly. So it's something that they really have to just they kind of have to watch how they do it. But I don't know if necessarily adding extra weeks to the event is the right move, in my opinion. But, at the same time, too, I wouldn't complain if that happened. But you made a good point. In terms of Stay and Scream, you and I would stay, and we would get 7 houses done last year and in previous years. And I'll say earlier in September I was getting about 5 or 6 done with Stay and Scream, but now it has gotten dramatically worse, to the point that things are getting busy after that 3rd house, and that's making the event a lot harder to manage too. And I know there's people out there saying, well, you're doing it wrong. And yes, we might be doing it wrong, because of course it's all based on what houses you want to hit as well too. So it's not just an easy thing to say, but it has gotten a lot harder. And I know before Halloween started, some of the advice I gave out was go really late at the end of the night and don't even bother with everything in the beginning. Just go late. That hasn't even been true of this year. It's stayed busy all the way till close, which is wild, because last year I had multiple times where in the last hour and a half of the event, I would knock out 5 houses in that time, sometimes even more. That's not the case this year.
Yeah, and that's saying something too, because this year I think it was every night of the event was open till 2 a.m. So there was no fluctuating closing time.
Yeah, people are staying all the way. They are taking advantage of it. But if you want to do everything, that might be something that you have to do. So crowds have definitely been pretty awful this year. It's not the only thing that I think has been bad, and this one will probably get a little flack on, but again, it's all subjective. I think this year, one of the worst parts of the event was the shows. And I say that, of course, with an asterisk, because Ghoulish, the Lagoon Fountain show, was incredible. But of course, after Hurricane Ian rolled through, it stopped showing, and, had a lot of hopes that it would get fixed before Halloween came to an end. And unfortunately, Ghoulish did not survive, and we did not get to see another performance of Ghoulish. So that left us only with Nightmare Fuel. And I don't care for the show. It's not my thing. Ryno, I know it's not yours too. So without the Lagoon show, with just Nightmare Fuel, it just did not do it for me on the show front this year.
Yeah, I mean, Nightmare Fuel, very talented people on the show. It's nothing against those people at all. It's I thought the show last year was better. And again, it's just kind of like when that's your only show, that's another part of it, where it was there was nothing to eat a crowd. So it was because of the unfortunate, with Ghoulish going away. It's I was thinking about it the other night. It's they need a 3rd show somehow, but I don't know where you would do it. I mean, I know they've done it in the past. I don't know if they ever did it while the Lagoon show was going on. I don't think they did. I think that came after they dismantled there used to be the stage outside of Mel's, that area in Hollywood down there. But even then, that's just going to create a crowd on the street. So I think get rid of Animal Actors finally, because I hate that show, and keep the stadium and put something in there.
It's hard to, because you have to find another entertaining thing to have. Like,
yeah, well, I don't know what the answer is for that. Yeah,
I know. And some people would say like, oh, bring back Rocky Horror, because they used to do Rocky Horror at Halloween Horror Nights, and that was entertaining. They've done other things, the makeshift stage. I don't think I got all the way there. I will double check that though. The makeshift stage, of course they use that for random things. Academy of Villains was technically on a makeshift stage twice. They had the Jack show at HHN 25 on that built stage right in front of the Lagoon area. So yeah, they have had other stage shows besides what's been happening in the main theater, but it's about finding the right thing. In the Lagoon show, they have something going there, and it works. It's just unfortunate that what happened with it this year. But I do agree, if they could have 2 shows plus a Lagoon show, that would eat crowds as long as it's entertaining. And that would be a good way to cut down on the other bad problem that we had. But you mentioned eating people up, and we didn't do any people eating in this one. I'm not flying. I'm not purple. And I don't eat people. But I do think we're going to move into the next category, and that's kind of that middle area where it's not necessarily the worst things, not the best. But I think this year for me, ultimately, even though we had some really good food items, I think the food has just been kind of middle of the road average for me. We've had some really delicious items. We've had ones that were just downright disgusting. And then there are a lot of good ones that just don't feel like the price is correct on it. Like, it's just, there's nothing. Like, when I go back the next couple times over the weekend, there's probably nothing I would get again. And I would just skip over the food for me.
Well, the one thing that I feel like is the asterisk in all this is the Reuben, or the, were they Reuben fries? Or yeah. Those I did get again with my friend, and I felt like I think my complaint in the video we did of it before was the sauce wasn't on there like as much as there should be. And this time it was like that perfect ratio of like, actually I was shocked at how much corned beef was on the one we got, where I was like, I think they like made this one twice by accident or something. But my friend even said, like, without me saying anything about it, he's like, I actually don't know which one of these I like better. But but they're 2 different flavor profiles. So there was some good stuff, but yeah, I don't know if it's like, I agree with you in terms of like consistency and stuff like that, because I got the horseshoe burger with my friend, because we had small versions on the media night. They had made us the like crostini sized ones, I would say. And I think it definitely served better as that, like as a slider, and you should get like 3 of them, because it was like $13, and it didn't come with, like, I know the fries are like on it, but it wasn't like the amount of fries you'd get as a side of fries or anything. It's an open sandwich, and like, it was good, but it was one of those where I was like, this is like an $8 item. But also it wasn't as good as the smaller version of that. So that was one of those where I was like, I wish this was, there's a couple of things where you go like, oh, I wish this was this way, or this was a little bit different and stuff. Like, like I like the pizza skulls, but it's one of those where you're like, is there something that I need to go and get one more time before the event's over? And like I said, with the exception of maybe the Reuben fries, which I would hope they would keep all year round. I don't think they will, but like, I don't know. So that, I think that says something about it a little bit, It did.
You use the right descriptor there for the things. There was a couple items that I'll say it was just flat out good, like the Chucky burger that we got. Yes. I have no complaints about that. Nothing at all. But a lot of the rest that we got, I would say it was good, but and that's where it didn't meet like expectations. It was good, but it was expensive. The custard that we had, it was good, but why was there just a thin layer of custard on the bottom and made it a very strange dish to eat? You know, I like the fried chicken thighs that we had. It was good, but you know, maybe there could have been a little bit more peppers in there or something.
I
to
had
like
those again, and I got sick.
Oh no!
Yeah,
it is people. You know. It's
Well,
people.
that was I don't know. I had them, and then I went to go pick up my friend at the airport, and I ended up throwing up. And
Wow.
I don't know if it was related to that. I just know that was a thing where I was like, so now it's one of those where I was like, well, that thing I liked is ruined for me because like I got sick while I had it.
Well,
And I hadn't even been drinking or anything. So that's the crazy part. Not like I had a drink. So I don't know if it just didn't agree with me. My tummy was bothering me. I don't know what happened.
you didn't like them too much though, so at least there's that. Like it's not like it was your favorite.
The cauliflower though. The cauliflower
Yeah.
I did have again, and that was definitely like one of the best things at the event. But again, consistency. We talk about having it when we had it like early on versus when I had it the last time I had it. It was half the size, and it was like way too much sauce. And I was like, okay, this feels like it was sitting in this little heater thing for like 45 minutes.
Well, we're probably going to take a lot of flack, just like the shows, with the next item, because the next in the middle of the road category, the average category for me, was actually the houses this year. And that's not a great thing considering the selling point of the event is the houses. But overall for me, you know, we kept talking going into this year's event that we weren't really blown away by a lot of the decisions on what the houses were going to be. And there, even after like the first weekend and the first couple of weeks, you know, we said there's ones that are standout, but then there's a lot that just kind of aren't necessarily bad or good, just in the middle of the road. And then there's one that's just flat out bad. And now, yes, we go with our frequent fear passes, so we get to do these houses a lot, some not as much as others. But now that I've done them a lot, there are just a lot of very average houses this year that I will completely forget about and never think about again.
Okay.
Honestly, only the best of them and the worst of them are going to be the ones I remember. And then the rest are just going to be blank spots in my mind. And it's kind of disappointing. And I'm not trying to insult the characters inside the houses. I'm not trying to insult the design to the houses. I think it's just kind of a combination with how I feel about the properties, the amount of scares, how lucky I've been going through, the amount of times I've done some of them that I'm like, I don't see a lot in there. It's not adding up for me.
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to what I talked about before the event about there not being like that lightning house, the one that you want to plan your vacation toward. And like, yes, there is a house we rave about because I thought like Dead Man's Pier was beautiful and everyone talks about that. But like beyond that, and maybe like Monsters Legendary, you know, the
Legends Collide.
Legends Collide, because I was going to call it Monsters Legendary Truth, and I was like, that doesn't feel right. But I don't know that there's one that I even hear anybody talking about other than people being like, I don't want to go in the Bugs house. You know, like that's it. Whereas I just pulled up the list of last year's houses, and it was The Haunting of Hill House, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Icons Captured, Bride of Frankenstein Lives, which, yes, we had for 2 years, Beetlejuice, Scary, Legendary, Case Files on Earth, Legendary Truth, the Pumpkin, you know, Wicked Growth, Puppet Theater, Captive Audience, Revenge of the Tooth Fairy. So 2 of those houses we had for 2 years. So I understand like the kind of burnout toward those by the end maybe. But I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, there's not a bad house in here last year. Like every one of those houses, even the ones where I'd be like, oh, I got tired of this one. None of these was I like, you know what? That one's not great for me. And I wouldn't do it again. Oh yeah. But also that's mainly because I hate the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And every time we did it, it was when we stayed in Scare Zone. So I couldn't see anything in the house. And I hate when a man in chainsaw and bad smells and stuff like that.
No,
but I agree. I think there's more this year of me going, versus last year. I'd be like, sure, I'll do that. And this one I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't need to. You know what I mean? Like I'm not poo-pooing on any of the houses necessarily, but I just feel like, you know.
Yep. I will say flat out, I have 4 houses in this year's event that I do love, and I'm going to do them again. There's one house that I hate that I'm going to do again because I literally have not done it since the very first weekend. Uh, and everything else is in the middle. I don't need to do any of them again. There might be one more that in the middle gray area that I would give one more shot, but really, yeah, it's just hasn't been a strong year for the houses, and I really hope they can get back to their A game next year. And I just mean in terms of finding that big property that draws people in. You know, that was the weekend this year, and I think that was an accomplishment. And if you only ask my opinion of the weekend based on that first weekend that we were going to it, I would have told you the weekend was potentially the top house for me, and I think I might have.
You say the word weekend.
I'm saying it. I know I'm saying it a lot, but the weekend was easily as a one-time house going through. If you hit all the scares, if you really got into that vibe, it was an absolute perfect thing. But to me, it didn't retain its value over the course of the event, going multiple times, which that's a problem for frequent fear pass holders and such, not necessarily people going for one night only. So that's why it gets skewed a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. It might be one of the first years that I regret having the frequent fear pass and kind of hurting my opinion of some of the houses because of doing them too many times versus just, enjoying them once or twice and leaving it at that. But we are going to give our final rankings for the houses at the end of this episode. But I want to move now on to the best things about this year's event so we can start to get a little bit positive, because that was dragging me through the negatives there. But the first thing I will say about this year's event that I think was the best thing, I would say the merchandise for me was absolutely spot on the entire time. We talked about it before the event started, once it started coming out in the different shops around Universal Orlando. And they added a couple little things here and there throughout the event. And I loved the embracing of Halloween as the theme of the merchandise this year. Yes, some of the houses and properties had their own merchandise too, but just I've bought so many things this year just because of that Halloween look and feel to all of it, without just being like over the top, like this is Horror Nights specific to Universal and this, like with Lil Boo. So many, Kylie bought the Lil Boo pumpkin purse. So many people have complimented her on it who know absolutely nothing about HHN. They're just like, oh, I love your little pumpkin purse you have. And, like the sign that we both bought from Halloween Horror Nights. Yeah, it says Halloween Horror Nights on there. But if you like kind of ignore that and just look at the imagery, it doesn't scream like Universal in that way. Yeah. And I felt that way about all the merchandise. I really had to hold back on stuff this year because I don't need it. It's just extra stuff that will just pile onto my life, like everything behind me, and I don't have enough money to buy it all on top of that. But they did a tremendous job with the merch this year, and I truly applaud them for it.
Yeah, I actually went, got too grabby. And there was stuff where, I, of course, lost the receipt for just the things where I was like, I need to return this. But I did I completely agree with you in terms of it. It went for that kind of especially the stuff that was looked a little more like retro. What is the word I'm looking for? But retro Halloween design.
Yeah, vintage Halloween.
Vintage, yeah, vintage. And because that's the sort of that, it's ironic, during when we were in the lockdown part of the pandemic, I was like, oh, I'm going to, I was like, you know what? I know we're not going to have Halloween, but I want to have I want to look for classic. My friend's house, she's got a lot of classic beer advertisements up everywhere because that's her job, has to do with beer education and stuff like that. But, and I was like, oh, I love this old type of advertisements and things. And I was like, I wish there was more stuff like that for Halloween and I could find it. And it was impossible to Google search that because when you Google search any of that stuff, and, good for them, Michael Myers is the only thing that pops up, because that overtakes the SEO search. But it was like they heard what I was wanting, that I was putting out in the universe. And it came to be. And so I didn't want to pass that up. Of course, I ended up with too much stuff. A phone case I don't need, a extra sign now. I like too many glasses. I have a glass literally wrapped up where I was like, why did I buy this right next to me? And I wish I could return it, but I lost the receipt for this one. All the stuff I lost receipts for, and I'm like, God. So
you'll enjoy that.
A lot of stuff.
When Eli breaks that, when Eli breaks another glass, you'll love having that one.
Yeah.
So.
No. I mean, that is going to happen. So all of my good glasses are precariously positioned right now, and it's stressing me out. But yeah, I definitely think they knocked it out of the park. So yeah. I look forward to it. Makes me very excited to see what's on the horizon for like the Christmas stuff, because I think that last year they did a really good job with all the Earl of Squirrel stuff. So I'm very excited to see that transition and then see what next year's event brings for Halloween.
Yeah, now, I'm fully on board, though. I think all of the aesthetic they chose with the merch this year, it had that vintage look to it, but at the same time, it felt new and unique. So it didn't just feel like a ripoff of what you would expect from like 30s, 40s Halloween. And I this is nothing to do with Universal. It has to deal with Disneyland. But I wish you could have went to Disneyland at the Halloween time period back when they still had Big Thunder Ranch, because they basically covered that entire area, because it was like the Halloween ranch area. I forget. I keep wanting to say Halloween Hootenanny, but I don't think that's what it was. I think that's from something else.
That's
but
the band you showed me today.
Yeah, that probably it. That probably is it. But that entire like Big Thunder Ranch area, they would cover in vintage Halloween decorations, and like I mean cover, like every foot there was a different decoration, and it was all in that like era that looked like it could be from the late 1800s till about like the 1930s. And I just we tried to go on a spending spree for a while of trying to find vintage decorations like that, because like they're out there, and I grew up with like kind of like that I think it's pronounced Beistle, Beistle look to it, like with the paper hang-ups that you can put up. And like, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that, but man, Disneyland had a treasure trove of vintage stuff, and I know it's probably sitting in a warehouse somewhere, and if they ever do a garage sale, I would buy it all, because it was incredible. I'll send you my video that I had from it. Like it was what I wanted my life to be at Halloween.
You're just making me realize I forgot to go look for the ghost hugging the pumpkin from the tribute store. I need him. He was at Michael's. He was like $50, and now I'm like, well, if I can find him, he's probably on sale now. You know, it was like that classic vacuum form sort of like figure.
Oh yeah,
like,
I remember.
You know what I'm talking about? It's about like 2 or 3 feet high.
Yeah, I never saw him at our Michael's.
When I was in Milwaukee, I searched for him, and they had him at one of the ones there, and I was like, no, because I'm gonna have to mail this back. I should have just bought it and left it at Kim's house, and then just been like, this is my ghost, and I'll come and visit him.
I mean, you flew Southwest. Why didn't you pack an extra bag?
You know, I did, and I am now realizing it, and I completely forgot that it was free to check bags. Do free check bags on Southwest.
Yep.
This episode's sponsored by Southwest.
No, it is not. No, it is not. No, that's where I put my foot down. Okay, this is what I have in the best category. Ryno faulted this one, but I still stand by it. I'd put the scare zones this year in the best category, and I haven't spent a lot of time in them. I've mostly spent time walking through them, and yeah, that's just been kind of how I've been handling this year's event. But at the end of the day, I enjoy every single one of them. I enjoy walking through the spooky cemetery that just gives me all those Halloween feels. I love walking through the Halloween parade gone wrong. Even the witch one out in front of Fast and Furious. Like I always will stop when they have like the show that's happening right in front of the stage, and the scarecrows with all their corn. It actually works pretty well. I mean, the weakest for me is the first scare zone in Production Central, but I mean, you know, that's more about setting the aesthetic mood than anything, and having the pumpkin lord out front of it. Beyond that, like, it doesn't need to be a great one, but I think it actually, for me, I will remember the scare zones more than a lot of the houses from this year, just because of the Halloween feels that I got from them. So that's why I put it in the best.
Yeah, no, but I understand. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I kind of always forget about the cemetery, but the cemetery was pretty great, and I do like the scarecrow area. I was just thinking where I was like, maybe it just feels like there. I think for me, the one that falls a little short is the entrance, the one that's right by the music plaza. What's that one called?
Right in Production Central. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the only one where it's like like I think about like last year, like the platforms of the different characters, and this year it feels like there's only like 3 characters there, and so it does. But that one always, I feel like, is just like a quick non-scare zone sort of a thing. But no, I agree, because I do really love the entire aesthetic and the storyline of the Trick or Treat one in New York. Like, I just love how the theater lends itself to that and everything. I think that looks great, and it's cool that the Witches one like involves a show. And I do like the Pumpkin Lord being out there and like greeting people as they come in Production Central, and so like they all have their things, and so it's good. I also like that it feels a little more unified with it all being actually about Halloween too. It's fun.
Yeah. And the best thing I would say, though, from this year's event, if I had to pick one, that would be the addition of the Dead Coconut Club at Universal City Walk, taking over Red Coconut Club. While I will say the drinks have not blown me away, Ryno and I did get to go one night, and we ended up having every single one of the drinks they offered, which was only 3. It wasn't a lot. And then they had one mocktail too, but did not try that. Well, the drinks didn't like blow me away by any means. They killed it with the aesthetic inside here. Having the blend of tiki and classic monsters, it just worked wonderfully. And it only got better as the event went on, because, they had the entire first floor of Dead Coconut Club all themed the entire way through. It was perfect as it was. And then they're like, okay, we're going to open up the second floor, and it's going to be dedicated to Creature from the Black Lagoon. And just in the last couple weeks of the event, then they're like, hold on, we're not finished yet. Let's go ahead and put in Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster and the bride inside for photo ops. Like, that's cool. They kept taking it to the next level. And honestly, if the drinks would have been better, I probably would have spent more time in there. The one Isle of Java drink, I think is what it was called. I don't remember the name exactly for it. Like, that one was fine, but drinks were $14.50. So they were very expensive. And then tip on top of that too. I don't think the drinks were worth it. And that's a shame, but I would love to see them bring this back every year. It can be the exact same. I don't think anyone will complain. They can change it up for Christmas if they want, as Ryno suggested right before we started recording this. They could do that. I think the last remaining clubs of Universal City Walk are so pointless, because the whole atmosphere of City Walk has changed over the years. It's not the place it was 10 years ago, and it wasn't the place it was when it first opened. Something like this has revitalized that space over the Halloween season, and I would love to see them just continue this on in the future. And it was a highlight.
I liked it because I liked the idea, if you couldn't make Stay and Scream, but you didn't want to wait at the gate, it gave you something to do from that period of time between like park closing, because it usually opened around like 5. And Halloween Horror Nights either opened at 6 or 6:30. Like, I thought it was nice to have that option. Or if it started raining, it was something where I'd be like, oh, well, it started raining, let's just go into Dead Coconut Club instead. I like that they had all the beer, the specialty beers, because they had the Whole Hog. They had the Bat Squatch IPA, and they had the the pecan pie cider was in there as well. And then there was like a fourth thing too. But
Bood Light.
A Bood Light? A Bood Light. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. I like that they had the Creature from the Black Lagoon, like the plastic moldorama was in there too. That was really cool. So it was nice. And yeah, I would love a Christmas makeover of this too. It's good to have, like, I like it too, because it takes Halloween out of that park and adds it a little something somewhere else, which they've done at Cabana Bay with the bar and stuff like that there. So it's nice to have somewhere at City Walk that celebrates it too, because I thought it was cool last year how they did the Christmas Village out there, the holiday village for the holidays. And so like this is nice that now they've kind of taken that idea and done something for Halloween. And so I'm with you where I hope they like keep it going. Be cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So that was our list of the best and worst in the rest of Halloween Horror Nights. Always let us know if you agree, disagree. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're idiots. Always love talking about Halloween Horror Nights more, and we won't be able to do it for much longer because, we're moving into Christmas, as Ryno just alluded to. And speaking of Christmas, we'll just wrap this up real quickly. I know we still have to get to our rankings. That's the very last thing. Keep you on your toes, but Christmas was brought up, and so as Halloween Horror Nights is coming to an end, they gave us our first preview for what to expect from the Tribute store for Christmas this year. They placed a nice little Easter egg in the end of the store, advertising the Tribute department store. And this will include, this pre-holiday bonanza will include stuff like a festive squirrel. I wonder who that could possibly be. Ryno, this one I was really excited about. Holiday meal in a can, a staple of the holiday season filled with all the flavors you could want. So if they're selling a turkey dinner fully in a can,
that's going to be true.
They already are doing it over at Green Eggs and Ham with the Who hash can.
You're right. Interesting. Okay.
Like it's honestly one of those things. It makes sense. Layer of mashed potatoes. I would put a layer of stuffing at the bottom. A layer of mashed potatoes, gravy, cranberry sauce, turkey at the top. And right there, you start mashing it around. You have a full dinner right there. I might make it on my own.
You still got your Who hash cup, I think so.
No, you took the Who hash cup.
Oh, I thought you got one too.
No, that one's yours. It's solely just yours. So it's still got Who hash in the bottom
got
of
it right
I
here.
believe.
No, I cleaned it. Sorry, it's got a glass of this is butter beer from the New York experience. My friend Nicole keeps bringing me glass bottles of butter beer. I keep it over here. Holds the butter beer.
Okay. Well, just keep that rust away from it and keep that butter beer in it. That's the right place for it. So I'm going to hope that's what it is. I've made it up in my head, so I expect that to be. They have matching sweater and I can't read that part. Matching sweater and scarf. Colorful advertising, colorful winter clothing, Santa blow molds. I don't think they'll have those in there, but obviously doing it. And then they also have in the bottom of it the holiday tree displays brought to you by our friends at North of the Border and Earl Lando. Trees donated by the kind folks at Mistletoe Pines Village. And that was the village out front. Out front of Universal City Walk last year that Ryno has already alluded to. So I think we have a lot of fun to look forward to with the holiday season, and hopefully I will get to enjoy that fun. But we'll worry about that in a couple weeks. For now, Ryno, let's end with our rankings. Do we want to do where we go back and forth?
No,
10, 9, 8,
just do it.
Do it? Okay. You do yours first.
We got to go.
You do yours first.
Okay, so ultimately, should I start from the top down or bottom up?
I'm going to do from worst to best, and I'm not going to give any explanations. I'm just going to say what my order was, and you'll have to pretend why.
This was ultimately, I feel like when I'm thinking about them, and it was like a couple tough choices, but I went with Spirits of the Coven, Hellblock Horror, Descendants of Destruction, Chupacabra, Blumhouse, The Weeknd, Halloween, Bugs, Dead Man's Pier, and Monsters is my number one.
Okay. And for mine, I have number 10, Spirits of the Coven, number 9, Hellblock Horror, 8, Chupacabras, 7, Blumhouse, 6, Descendants of Destruction, 5, Weeknd, 4, Dead Man's Pier, 3, Bugs Eaten Alive, 2, Universal Monsters Legends Collide.
What?
And number 1, Halloween.
Halloween? Boo.
Halloween's one of my favorite movies, man. One of my favorites. That's
All right.
that's the most
Fine.
explanation
Fine.
you'll get from anything.
Fine.
That's it. That's it. And you know what? That's it for this week's episode of the DIS Unplugged Universal Edition. Ryno, thanks so much for having this fun conversation with me.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone out there who has listened and watched along this entire Halloween season. I know it's been too much for many of you. And for some of you, you're saying, what, you're stopping? How can you? How dare you? How dare you? But I really do appreciate all the support you give us. That's why we're able to continue doing this show. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I'm trying to think of like a scary beating.
From the bottom of our hearts.
From the bottom of our telltale hearts.
Oh.
Yes.
Nevermore.
Yeah. Poe. It's just a little Poe humor. Fun. But no,
From
thank you very much.
Treehouse of Horror.
Correct. Yeah, that was the first time Edgar Allan Poe was created.
Yeah.
It's for Treehouse of Horrors. But anyways, if you want to support us more, of course, you can book a trip through Dreams Unlimited Travel. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave comments, questions, video suggestions. If you're listening to this, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if it's through a place where you can leave a rating and review, please take the time to do so. But thank you again to Ryno and everyone out there. No thanks to me, but that's it for this week's episode of the DIS Unplugged Universal Edition. We'll see you again real soon with another one. But until then, remember, we still haven't changed the name.